You ever been in a room full of people, but everyone, including you, is just staring at a screen? It's this huge paradox of our time, right? We've never been more connected, but at the same time, we often feel more alone. Today, we're going to dive into the work of MIT's Sherry Turkle to figure out how we got here and what it really means to be alone together. So let's just rewind for a second. It sounds almost crazy to think about now, but back in 1978, some of the absolute sharpest minds in computer science got together at this MIT retreat, and their whole goal was to answer a surprisingly simple question: what on earth is anyone actually going to do with a home computer? The answer they eventually stumbled upon? Well, it changed absolutely everything. It wasn't some fancy program or a new function. As it turns out, the answer was us.
I mean, think about that reversal. It's a complete flip. We went from asking, how do we keep these machines busy, to the world we live in right now, where we're constantly asking, how do we stop them from keeping us so busy? You know, that endless cycle of checking emails, scrolling feeds, and jumping on every notification.
The first ideas they came up with were honestly pretty underwhelming. Someone suggested, hey, maybe kids could learn to program. Others thought about a digital address book. But people just kind of laughed that off. A paper notebook was way easier for the handful of contacts most people had. A computer calendar? Nah, a filofax was so much more practical. Nobody saw what was coming.
And here's the kicker. Once we connected computers to each other, once they became a doorway to other people, we didn't have to worry about keeping them busy anymore. They keep us busy. We became their ultimate purpose, their killer app.
And that shift has created the world we're all living in now. A world Turkle calls a culture of distraction, where our attention is just permanently divided.
We're always multitasking. Or, as one person Turkle interviewed put it, we're multi-lifing. He called it the life mix, this constant blending of our physical world with all those other digital spaces we can just dip into through our phones whenever we want.
And this is where you really see the human cost. Kids talk about coming out of school, looking for that moment of eye contact with their parent and just finding them staring at a screen, or being read a bedtime story with one hand while the other hand is scrolling through emails. From their very first moments, technology has been the competition.
This connection has gotten so deep, it's almost physical. Turkle talks about this phenomenon called the phantom ring. You know that moment you're absolutely sure your phone just buzzed in your pocket, but when you check, there's nothing there?
Come on. Has that ever happened to you? It's a super common experience, and it just goes to show how deeply wired these devices have become into our nervous systems. We're literally trained to expect a notification at any given moment.
And that leads to this really powerful conclusion. Our phones aren't just tools anymore. For so many of us, they've basically become a phantom limb. We feel anxious, incomplete when they're taken away. They feel like a part of us.
So why? Why do we do this? Why do we keep choosing the screen over the person right in front of us? Turkle explains it with something she calls the Goldilocks principle.
It all starts with a really fundamental human vulnerability. We feel lonely, we crave companionship, but at the exact same time, we're kind of scared of the messiness and the demands of real intimacy. And that's where technology becomes so incredibly seductive.
Think about it. Real friendship requires you to be vulnerable. It takes commitment, and you have to deal with messy, unpredictable people. Online connectivity, though, it offers this illusion of connection, but with a feeling of control. We can edit our replies, we can manage our image, and we can keep everyone at a nice, safe distance.
And that is the Goldilocks effect. We get connection that's not too close, not too far, but just right. It's connection that's tailored for us, giving us that feeling of companionship while protecting us from all the hard work that comes with true friendship. This leads to a really simple but powerful preference. We'd rather text than talk. Why? Well, because as one young man told Turkle, on the phone, too much might show. Texting gives us time to craft that perfect, non-vulnerable reply. So the consequence of living by this principle is that central paradox Turkle talks about. In this state of constant contact, we wind up alone together. This constant performance actually changes our relationship with ourselves. It leads to what Turkle calls, I share, therefore I am. It's that feeling that an experience isn't quite real until it's been posted, until it's been liked, until it's been validated by our network. And this creates a subtle but really critical shift. We've gone from, I have a feeling, so I want to make a call, to something brand new. I want to have a feeling, so I need to send a text. We start outsourcing our own emotional lives, expecting technology to actually generate feelings for us.
And the most crucial thing we lose in this whole process is the capacity for solitude. We get so used to constant connection that we can't just be with ourselves anymore. And as Turco warns, if we don't learn how to be alone, we will only ever know how to be lonely. Because solitude, that's where we learn to actually know and comfort ourselves.
Okay, but this isn't a story of doom and gloom. Not at all. Turkle insists we're at a moment of huge opportunity. It's still early days for the internet, and we can absolutely make corrections. The way forward is all about reclaiming conversation.
First things first, she argues we should resist calling this an addiction. And why is that? Because if we're addicted, the only solution is to get rid of the drug. And let's be real, we are not getting rid of the internet. Calling it an addiction makes us feel helpless and passive, when what we really need is to focus on our vulnerabilities and start making conscious choices.
We need to be honest about what we're losing when we're constantly performing online. By only showing our ideal selves, we lose the space to be vulnerable, to ask for help, or to admit we failed. This happens in our friendships, but it also happens at work, where people avoid leaving any kind of electronic trail of needing help. And that makes it harder to be mentored and a lot harder to solve real problems.
So what's the big takeaway? The technology itself isn't the problem. It's how we choose to use it. The next great human adventure isn't about the next app or the next device. It's about looking up from our screens and restarting those messy, vulnerable, and deeply necessary conversations with the people who are right in front of us. That, as Turkle says, is the next frontier.